Today's guest on the Life and Living podcast is Tracy McCubbin. Now, Tracy is the owner of a business called Declutterfly. She also is the author of a book called Making Space Clutter Free. Now, you might say, well, what are we doing talking about clutter on a Life and Living podcast? Well, the fact of the matter is that we all have it around us. You know, it's not just a personal thing. It can be where what we do at home, but it also can be how we are at the office, but also the environment in which we live in. And the truth of the matter is that having an excess of clutter does not serve us well, either personally or professionally. But one of the things that we go into in the interview, and I said, Tracy is really, really interesting about it because she talks about why we clutter. And it's not just because, I'm lazy and I won't bother putting things away, but there are kind of deep psychological reasons as to why we clutter. And there's stuff that's going on in our world, in our lives that we need to understand, but also is to understand, the impact of clutter. It's not just, well, the place is a bit messy. It actually has a really, really, again, deep psychological meaning and impact on the lives that we live and the lives that we're looking to live. And she also talks about the 7 emotional clutter blocks. And trust me, I did not think that I would identify with any of the clutter blocks because I'm not a hoarder and I don't believe I'm a hoarder. But believe you me, I actually did identify with at least one of the clutter blocks. So, and also what she does, she wraps up, is how to get started because, we all have the best will in the world. I'm going to tackle that garage. I'm going to tackle that room. I'm going to tackle that wardrobe, but maybe not today. So we procrastinate and put it off because it's just too big. So she really does give some great tips as to how we might go about it and get that done for once and for all. If you want to get other tips and strategies, then please go to my website, www.johnmurphyinternational.com, where there are loads of great interviews there. But in the meantime, sit back and enjoy the interview with Tracy. Tracy, you're very welcome here today to the Winning Teams podcast, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I must admit, I was a little bit paranoid before I got on. Knowing your subject matter, I thought, now, is my office tidy and is everything, put away and I don't have any rubbish hanging around? So I did have a quick kind of look around what's behind me to make sure that everything... Do you make everybody that paranoid?
Yeah, people don't like to invite me to parties anymore. And I'm always like, no, please. Though, to be warned, I will take a peek in your coat closet.
I can well imagine. So, your website is called Declutterfly. Where did the Clutterfly come from?
When I started my business 13 years ago, it was a funny trajectory. People always say all roads lead you to where you're supposed to go. And I had a myriad of jobs. I'd been a personal assistant for 2 different people. I'd done the books for small businesses. I'd been a secretary in a law firm. And so I was working for a television director and I was doing... Basically, people would call me friends of his and say, I have a funny job. It would always start that way. I have this funny job. My grandmother passed away and I've got to clean out her house, or my business went under and I've got to do forensic bookkeeping. And more of these calls started to come in. And a friend of mine was like, I think you have a business. I think you just make people's problems go away. And I would start to work with a graphic designer to develop the website. And I said, and just more and more, I'm helping people, just get rid of their clutter. And she said, oh, you mean you make it just fly away? And I was like, well, I put it in my car and I drive it away. So kinda. So out of that, Declutterfly was born.
Okay. I like it, actually. I think it's really, really good. So just to explain your business model, how does your business model work? Just in a brief way.
Yeah, so we're a service business. It's myself and 8 employees, and we work usually in teams of 2, but we can sometimes have the whole team depending on the size of the job. We go into people's homes, offices, storage units, and help them manage their stuff. So we help them sort it, figure out what to keep, what to get rid of, when you're getting rid of it, how the best way to get rid of it. Our business model is we take everything away. We work with lots and lots of nonprofits. So we figure out the best place to donate everything. And we take that off people's plate. We don't leave you with a pile of stuff. We put it in our van, take it away. We get electronic waste disposed of. We shred things. We take care of chemicals. And then we help you figure out how to put your stuff away and how to make the best system so that your home or office works smoothly.
All right. Okay. I loved the one of your testimonials because one client said you provide a unique service that people do not even realize they need. And I thought that's quite an achievement to actually sell something that people don't even know they need. How do you do that?
Yeah. It's my business is mostly word of mouth. I do very little advertising. And oftentimes what happens is someone will be saying to a friend, my mother passed away and I've got to empty her house and I'm working a full-time job and I don't even know how to start. And they're like, you need Tracy. And they're like, what's a Tracy? And they're like, just call her. So most of times my consultations, which are free, are me just explaining what I do.
All right. And I see also that you do it virtually.
Yes.
How does that work?
Now it's even more than ever.
Well, yeah.
Because I've been doing this for so long and I've written my book, Making Space Clutter Free, about what I call the 7 emotional clutter blocks. These are these stories that we've created in our heads about why we can't let go of our stuff.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that because I love those. I just want to touch on those.
So
how do you do it virtually?
We, oftentimes we will, it's a bit theoretical. So we'll talk through someone's emotional blocks. I help them come up with a work plan. So are you going to dedicate 15 minutes a day, an hour a day? I become a bit of an accountability coach, and sometimes it's a matter of them holding up, do I need this coffee cup or not? And we do it that way. But virtually, it really becomes more of an accountability coach.
All right. Okay. I mean, I mentioned in the intro that you're the author of Making Space Clutter Free. I'll just maybe kind of reflect on that. I mean, why do we all create clutter? Because we all do. I'm sure even you do. Do you? Or do you?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Paperwork is my bugaboo. I famously confessed that. I think that I think we write these stories about our stuff. It keeps us stuck in the past or reminds us of the past. We get very sentimental. Someone who passed away gave it to us. We think we're going to fit into those pants that we fit into long ago. We spend a lot of money on it, so we can't possibly get rid of it. We have all these reasons why we can't let go. And also we keep adding more. Right now, cheap consumer goods has, in the same way that processed and cheap foods has added to the obesity problem, cheap consumer goods has added to the stuff problem.
Yeah. I mean, you referred to, and you mentioned there, the emotional clutter blocks, which, to quote you, the unconscious reasons people hold on to stuff that no longer serve them. I mean, so have I got kind of emotional connection to all the clutter that I have, or am I just lazy about clearing it out?
Very few people are lazy. Very few people are lazy. It really is an emotional stuff. So for instance, for me, paperwork is number 3, avoiding my stuff. I just don't like to deal with it. I started a business not knowing anything. I didn't have an MBA. I didn't read the E-Myth. I just, and I was one of those classic entrepreneurs that started a business. And at the end of my first year, when I ran my numbers, I realized I was working for less than minimum wage because, and someone was like,
welcome to the world of the entrepreneur. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So paperwork, and then I got audited by the IRS in the very, very beginning. And so paperwork became a thing for me. And so I just avoid it. I'm getting much, much, much better at it. And I set times and I do things, but I have an emotional fear of it because for so long I felt like I didn't know what I was doing running a business. Turns out I was running a very successful business for a long time and I knew a lot of stuff, and then I chose to educate myself.
But do you think that do we always have that emotional connection to the clutter?
Yes. And I think I think part of decluttering, I'm not a minimalist. If minimalism works for you, great. I don't think it works for a lot of people. What I want is I want your home to be useful, restful, and shareable. I want you to come home at the end of the day or be in it all day if you work from home and feel lifted up by it. I don't want it to like, ugh, I got to deal with that pile. Ugh, I can't even get my car in the garage. Ugh, that's how so many people feel about it. So decluttering is about making your home work for you, not about getting it right.
Okay. And one of the things I was fascinated by in your book is that you say that 90%, I think it's 90% of the homes that you enter are in some form of crisis. That's an incredible statistic.
I know, it's incredible. They're, offsite storage units, where you go and you rent, that's something like $100 billion business. I mean, everybody has it. People have so much stuff in their homes that they're paying $200, $400 a month to store their stuff that they're never going to go touch. So it's really, I think the world right now, I think we're in a clutter crisis. I don't use that term lightly, but I see it every day.
And when you talk about them being in crisis, I mean, do they know they're in crisis themselves? Or, what sort of crisis are they in?
They know, look, by the time someone calls me, they know it's not working for them,
okay, yeah.
Right? So it becomes, oftentimes it's financial, right? I can't pay for the storage unit anymore. I've got to sell this house, so I've got to declutter it. A lot of times it's stressful. I can't do this anymore. I can't find what I'm looking for. I'm late to work every day because I can't. There's always some bigger cost that makes them look inward. And oftentimes let me go backwards. There have been so many studies on clutter and stress that, they've done all these studies on women, and women who live in cluttered homes have increased cortisol, which is your fight or flight hormone. Yeah. It's just, the brain can only see so much. I mean, I have to giggle every time someone says to me, I know where everything is. And then they point to a giant pile in the corner. I'm like, well, that's not knowing where everything is. That's knowing that somewhere in that pile it's in there. So it's really about making your home work for you and support you. And especially if you're an entrepreneur and if you're working from home, if your business is in your house, you're seeing that all day, every day. And it's about efficiency and lowering your stress and making it work for you. Not, you can only own 30 books. You need to be able to cook a healthy meal and have your kitchen counter clean. You need to be able to get dressed. It supports you and honestly makes you happier.
I mean, one of the things you talk about is that we have forgotten if you like, the old virtue of care and repair.
Yep.
And is that contributing to the clutter that, okay, I have something, so I don't even bother trying to repair it, I just buy something new. Is that what you mean by that?
Absolutely. So if it's cheaper for you to go to Old Navy and buy a $5 shirt, why are you going to sew a button on it? Right. It seems easier, but it really isn't, because the toll that cheap clothing is taking on the environment and the carbon footprint and everything just becomes disposable. Oh, I'll just buy another one. So we don't even know how to sew buttons on anymore.
I mean, it's curious. I mean, sometimes, you say one thing and then it prompts you to kind of think about something kind of over here. And I was wondering, when you talk about that care and repair, I was thinking, do we actually, is that the same, or is there a tendency for that for relationships as well?
Oh, that's interesting. I think so. I think that's so interesting. Yeah, I think somehow, and social media might come into that.
That's thinking.
Right, that you don't have to make it. I found myself saying to somebody the other day, oh, that's the nice thing about Facebook. Like, I don't have to remember when anybody's birthdays are, and I used to have everybody's birthday in my calendar, and a week before I would send a card, and now I don't have to put any care in. Facebook just tells me.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I just went off kind of on a thought process. The other thing, talking about, that clutter builds. I mean, you don't suddenly go from zero to clutter.
Rome was not cluttered in a day.
No, absolutely. So there's a little bit like the boiled frog analogy, that it just kind of creeps up with you and you don't notice. Are there things that you can do to prevent yourself cluttering?
Absolutely. So I have a couple litmus tests I tell people. You should be able to tidy up, put a room back to the way you like it in 20 minutes or less. So get all the laundry put away, clear off all the papers, do that. If it takes you more than 20 minutes, clutter's starting to get the upper hand. Also, you need to feel like, and this is very theoretical, but when I explain it to people, they go, you should feel like you own your stuff and your stuff doesn't own you. So if you feel like you're putting a lot of time into moving things around or clearing off the table to have dinner or to, manage your stuff, that's the relationship has turned upside down. That's a really great place for people to start, like, ugh, I can't, can you park your car in the garage?
Yeah. Let me go through the 7 emotional clutter blocks.
Yeah.
Because I just want to just get a sense of those. And the first one that you have is my stuff keeps me in the past. Just talk to me about that. I think I know what you mean, but.
Yeah. So that's everything from, pants you can't fit into anymore. I'm going to keep these clothes from high school because someday I might get into them, trophies from games. This is also parents who keep their kids' rooms in, kids are long gone and grown and their rooms look perfectly when they live there. This is about having your life full of, and again, I'm not saying get rid of all mementos. We want to reflect backwards. We want things that give us happy memories, but this is stuff that's telling us our best days are behind us. If you have a closet full of clothes you can't fit into anymore, every time you open that closet, you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough today.
Okay. I mean, just on that one, the one thought that I had is kind of, where does nostalgia stop and clutter start? I mean, it's that balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a real balance, and I think it stops being nostalgia when you don't have a place to store it anymore.
Right, okay. Your second one is my stuff tells me who I am.
These are my shoppers. These are the people who get a high from I got a deal. It was on sale. My logo, people who have logos, people who also, one of the things about stuff is that it keeps us from being lonely. If you're managing, a client said to me not so long ago, how could I possibly be lonely? I have 200 pairs of shoes, right? So my stuff tells me who I am, are my people who go and their only human interaction or their important human interaction is with a shopkeeper, right? That you're exchanging money with someone and so they're catering to you. That's what that clutter block is about, that you're gathering of stuff, you're acquiring of your stuff. This can be my collectors sometimes, that this is who you are. I'm a train collector. And of course, if you love it, but if it gets out of balance.
And is the person who, if you like, their self-identification comes from being going out and buying the branded, clothes, the latest that's come off the Paris catwalk or whatever it might be. Is that what you mean by that as well?
Yeah, exactly. And it goes both extremes. It's the people who have to have the best labels and they have to wear that and that identifies them, to the people who pride themselves, on being an absolute frugal bargain getter, but yet they're buying, they're buying 100 $5 t-shirts, but they were on sale. Yeah. It's sort of both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, I always love about that logic is kind of, look at the money I saved. You kind of, no, you didn't save it. You spend money. You didn't save it.
I say to this, a girlfriend said to me, she said, I got these boots and they were on sale. They were normally $500, but they were on sale for $250. I saved $250, and I was like, well, no, you spent $250.
Yeah. I love that. The third one is the stuff I'm avoiding.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. That's me. That's not opening your mail. That's not going through your paperwork. That's not looking at your emails. That includes in it, like, look, that letter to the tax man is not going to go away. You got to be a grown. And as and this one, I think I really see this apply to my business owners and entrepreneurs, right? That we get so busy doing the day-to-day, we're in triage all the time and we're just dealing with the employee problems and, that we're not we're not looking at the stuff that's building up and running in the background. This really can be a big one. And funny, the thing about this clutter block, number 3, avoiding my stuff, is I find the more successful someone is, this is their block.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the more successful their business is, the more kind of stuff they're avoiding.
I wonder why that is.
I think it's a combination of time management, right? That when you're running a business, especially if you have employees or, you're just dealing with everything on a daily basis, that you sort of just, and then you get home at the end of the day and you're like, I don't want to open my mail.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The fourth one, which kind of, which was interesting, is my fantasy stuff for my fantasy life.
Yes. So these are
Explain that. My mind was working overtime when I came to that one.
I'm sure. And yes, exactly. But this is the people who buy the things for the, let's say the hobby they think they want to do. Like, I want to be I want to take up cross stitching. So I go and I buy everything for it. And I think I'm going to be a cross stitcher. And then I never stitch a day in my life. It's the fantasy of, the life you think you're going to be living instead of the life you're living. If you're a mom of 4 and you have a full-time job, you're not, these are the buying the fancy dresses that they're going to wear to the someday parties they're going to go to. You have the life that you have, and it's an amazing life. So have the stuff for it. I often see people, this is a great example of this one. I often see people buying things to decorate the second home they haven't bought yet.
Right. Okay.
And I'm like, well, why don't you save that money to buy the home first before
and then you might get the stuff.
Exactly.
And your fifth one, which I thought was a really interesting, was that I'm not worth my good stuff.
Yeah, this one is funny. I just went through this one myself the other day. I was cooking a meal and I thought, I'm gonna bring out the nice china tonight. And I heard my grandmother in my head saying, oh no, it's too special to use. No, use your nice stuff. Like, what's special? If not, if not someday, if not today, when? So use the china, wear the nice shirt. This is people who have tags on their clothes, who buy expensive, use the nice stuff. There was a very, I think those of us who especially have grandparents or parents kind of 70 and above, there was really that idea. There was special nights and there was everyday china. And I'm saying maybe you use the special stuff. You're worth it. What are you hiding it away for? 3 sets of wedding china that I've never used.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just, when you're saying that, it just, what came to mind was that, my parents are long dead, but when I was growing up, I'm the youngest of 5. But we had, in the house, we had kind of a living room and a dining room and a kitchen, right? And we lived in the kitchen. The living room and the dining room was for good use. Now, I can't remember when we had people to the house all that often, right? So
right.
we had 2 rooms that were for good use that we just simply didn't use. And and all 7 of us are in the kitchen. And it was just
That's a perfect example, because of a family of 7, you could have used those other rooms.
Absolutely.
Right? It would have. So yeah, it's exactly that. So use the nice china. And people are I tell a story of my brother and his wife ended up in LA very quickly because of a medical issue, and they were in and out of the hospital and going for a long time, and they ended up getting an apartment to live here because of the travel, and they didn't have anything. And they were dealing with this medical stuff, and it was a very, very, very intense time. And I had my grandmother's china, which I never cared for. I didn't like the pattern, but it was my favorite grandmother's. And I thought, and it was gold rimmed. And I just always remember hand washing it with her because it couldn't go in the dishwasher, right? That whole thing. And they had nothing. They were in and out of the hospital eating off a paper plate. So I took it all over, put it in the cabinets. They started using it every day, and they got on, and all I could think about was, when I would think about my grandmother, I knew if she was here, she would want her grandson to eat off of china during a time like that. And so it was an ability for them to use something nice during a very trying time. And now everybody's healthy and happy, and that time is behind us. And you know what? They still use that china. It goes in the dishwasher. The gold has rubbed off, and who cares?
Absolutely. Your 6th one is you're trapped with other people's stuff.
Yeah. So this is mostly about inheriting things from people who have passed on. This
Right.
is really, it's been in the family for a long time. How can I possibly get rid of it? I don't like it. I don't use it, but so and so gave it to me. That it feels that it's a very dishonoring, you're dishonoring someone to let go of something they passed on to you. And I invite people to flip this story upside down and say, are you honoring that person if you're keeping things you hate, paying to store them, and they've become a burden to you?
Mm.
Right? That's the real, because I see so many people who are like, my whole garage is full of my grandmother's furniture and I'll never use it, but how could I possibly get rid of it? It was hers. That's really about us wanting to keep the attachment to those people. We don't want to lose, we're afraid, we don't want to lose them. I've heard so many people say to me when they come across pieces of paper that someone who's passed has written on, they say, every time I throw it away, I feel like I'm losing them all over again.
Mm.
So this is about acknowledging that they're not in the stuff. The stuff is the memory. So maybe you take a photo, or maybe you keep the best thing. I would rather you keep one thing that you love and look at every day than pay for a storage unit of stuff you're never, ever going to see.
Yeah, or even go near. And your seventh
Yeah.
one is the stuff I keep paying for.
This is my favorite quote about this is, I'll go into someone's home and they'll have a big treadmill, giant treadmill in the middle of their bedroom that everyone has to walk around. And I say, oh, do you use this? And they go, every day to hang my clothes on.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that we bought that we probably paid too much for, and we can't let go of it, even though we know we'll never use it. And it's like, I also see this in businesses. You invested in something, or you bought something, or, I bought a bunch of t-shirts for my staff that nobody tried on before. They had polyester in them. They make everybody sweat. They hate them. I had to get new t-shirts. I have a giant box of them, and everyone's like, can't you just let go of those? And I'm like, but they were expensive. And they're like, we're not gonna wear them. So it's about sometimes just putting on your big girl pants and saying, I spent too much money. I made a mistake. I'm not a bad person. I'm gonna let it go.
Yeah, I must say, I found the emotional clutter blocks. I found those 7 really, really interesting. So for the listeners, Tracy, so as a takeaway from that, because we all have some clutter. I mean,
Yes.
I'm sorry, maybe that's a very broad
statement. No,
but
we all do.
Yeah, we all have some clutter. So for takeaways for somebody listening, what are 3 things you would say to them? Say, okay, having listened to this, I recommend this is what you should do.
So this is great. So the first thing I tell people to do is just spend a day going about your normal day and figure out where your house doesn't work for you, where you're like, there's a whole bedroom I don't even go into because it's become a storage unit. Where does your house work for you, and where do you feel happiest in your home? And oftentimes they're very correlated, right? The part of the house that doesn't work is full of clutter, full of stuff you haven't dealt with. The part that's happy is the couch with the dog, and you can see the fireplace. So understand where it works in your house. And then when you understand where it doesn't work, figure out, the bigger word is the vision. Do you want to empty that extra bedroom so your grandchildren can come visit? Do you want to empty that extra bedroom that is full of things so you can turn it into your painting room? Find a reason. I don't want you to just go in and declutter because you think I'm a bad person. Why do you want to declutter? What are you going to get out of it? And it may simply be more space. That's a beautiful thing. I just want a room that's empty with sunlight. And so if you can focus on the why of it, it's going to make the doing of it easier. So,
I love that.
And then also be realistic about the time. Don't be a weekend warrior. Don't pull everything out. Like, know your tolerance. Maybe you can only do 15 minutes a day. Maybe you can only do an hour a day. Maybe you can do a whole weekend, but keep your why in your vision.
Mm. It is also a psychological thing in the sense that because I know that even, I'm not a hoarder. That's just the way I'm wired. So, but I actually find it quite therapeutic. It's got every 6 months to a year, I go through my wardrobe and say, okay, I haven't worn it in 4 months. Get rid of it. And I actually find it very therapeutic to do it. It's not just because I'm not trying to be minimalist. I'm trying to be anything like that. I just kind of think I always find it really a good thing. I feel good at having done it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's things take up space, and if space is filled, other things can't come into it, right? So if you have things in your space you're not using, that space is earmarked for literally dead weight. So there is, I mean, in the 13 years and thousands of clients I've done this for, I think there may be another one, but I can only think of one instance where we got rid of something and somebody wanted it back.
Wow. That's all.
That was it. I mean, thousands of clients.
Yeah.
Trust me on this one, that it's not the stuff that you're holding on to.
Yeah. I mean, just as an aside, what tends to happen there in my house is that I decide, okay, I'm going to get rid of all of that. And then my wife said, okay, we'll bring it to the charity shop, whatever it might be. And then a few weeks later, I kind of see something. I thought, gosh, I thought I threw that out. And it's back in my wardrobe. And my wife said, did you put that back in my wardrobe? He said, because I always liked it. So it's a constant battle, right?
Yes.
No, there is the difference between the two. But before we actually get into where people can get in contact with you, because I know that people want to reach out, I certainly would heartily recommend the book. It's a really good read. But a book, talking about books, a book not your own that has made an impact upon you. What is it, and why has it made an impact?
I think for me, and I always try and go back and read it every couple of years, is To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, yeah.
I think it just very early on when I read it, and I read it in school, and just the idea that you never know who needs your kindness, and for me, you never know what someone's going through. You never know the backstory. And for me, especially now that I have this business and I'm being invited into people's oftentimes most shameful places, right? I have many times where I've come and someone's sitting on their front stoop and they're like, I've changed my mind. I'm not going to let you in. And I'm like, all right, well, let's chat out here for a little bit. So I don't take their stories lightly. I don't take that trust lightly. And I think that I always approach my customers, my clients, with an extreme kindness. And that book always reminds me of that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. It really is
beautiful.
A wonderful, wonderful book. Second question is daily rituals. Do you have any, and you're happy to share them? I
make my bed 98% of the time. It's a big one. It's really a big one. It sounds so silly. No. But I make my bed every day, and it just kicks me off. I start my first task I set for myself. I accomplish it. It looks nice. As a girlfriend of mine said, when you crawl into bed at night, it feels hotel fancy. I also write my daily to-do list.
Right.
I often do it the night before. Sometimes I'll kind of do it at the night before so I can go to bed early, or I do it first thing in the morning, but I have a daily to-do list of the things that I'm going to do. And it just helps me. The second brain theory, I'm sure you've talked about that.
Yes.
I just do a brain dump of what I need to get done today. And that, if I don't have it, I get a little anxious. So probably making my bed and my daily to-do list.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And it's figuring out what works for you. Tracy, this has been fascinating. I've loved it. I've taken up more of your time than I said I would.
Oh, it was great. I could chat with you all day. It was delightful.
Where can people get in touch with you? Absolutely.
So best place to find me is my website, which is Tracy McCubbin, MCCUBBIN. I have a weekly newsletter. It's bi-weekly. I don't inundate your inbox. People can find me there. Social media. Instagram is my biggest platform. So I'm Tracy_McCubbin. And then only because Facebook likes to make it difficult, my Facebook is This Is Tracy McCubbin, because heaven forbid we have the same name across all platforms.
Absolutely. We couldn't do that. Tracy, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, a real delight. And I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.